I think it's an acknowledgement that they, how to put it, kind of stepped over their authority, went beyond what they should have done initially. I don't think it's a celebration at all. Not to take it aback, that's the wrong thing to say, but it's a little unseemly that Penn State fans and alumni and players are celebrating in the way some of them seem to be, certainly on social media and things like that. It's not a celebration. This was a terrible situation from beginning to end. There are no winners in this thing. And the fact is that the NCAA asserted power it didn't have. And it took the threat of this lawsuit for them to kind of back down. And that's fine and that's good. The NCAA shouldn't have done what it did. And that's, now we're back to kind of square one. But the idea that this should be celebrated because it's some kind of vindication for Penn State is my view.
Mike, obviously, this is a polarizing decision that the NCAA made today. People on both sides, arguing for and against the Joe Paterno decision today. Ultimately, was this a decision they made at the time that you were in favor of? Did you like the original decision by the NCAA, and do you like what they have done today?
I like what they've done today specifically because I didn't like it when they made it. On its face, this was beyond anything the NCAA had done or said it would do or was authorized could do within its own bylaws. And, the idea of vacating Joe Paterno's victories, as if they didn't happen, that doesn't accomplish anything. The sanctions moving forward are punishing people who didn't have anything to do with Jerry Sandusky's crimes. And just because those crimes were as heinous and disgusting and offensive as they were, doesn't give the NCAA some kind of magical power to punish Penn State in a way that it's not allowed to. And it really jumped the gun at the time. I said so at the time. And so now we've sorted things out.
Yeah, you wrote a piece that the NCAA rushed to judgment in the Penn State case. That was back in November of 2014. And you wonder, at this time now, where is Penn State after all of this? Have they gotten through this? Have they now have they gotten out of the Jerry Sandusky case and scandal, or is this something that will always kind of be around? Or do you think that the university has persevered and gotten through and has kind of lost that identity?
Oh, I don't think it's lost the identity at all, and that's what troubles me about the reaction. If you're celebrating this, if you're saying, whoop, whoop, State, because Joe Paterno got his victories reinstated, then that's kind of problematic. I mean, the whole idea of the controversy around this was, okay, how does this happen? How does a defensive coordinator, one of the most prestigious, respected college football programs in the country, do this? And what is the reaction to it from the community at large? Well, at the time and ever since, you've seen the reaction from Penn State people, not all of them, maybe not even most of them, but a lot of them, because there are a lot of them out there kind of saying, well, how dare you come after us and come after Joe Paterno, and we want our football program back, and all that kind of stuff. And that's the wrong kind of thing to take away from it. There's a culture of football having way too much importance for a university that liked to pride itself and a coach that claimed to pride himself on keeping football in its proper perspective. And that doesn't mean the NCAA should have punished them for that culture, and it doesn't mean that culture isn't any different from the culture at a lot of big-time college football programs and universities. But that culture is still there. And if you're celebrating Joe Pa getting his victories reinstated, you ought to take a look at your priorities, I think, because that's not the big thing here. The big thing is that an organization that didn't have power to punish Penn State recognized it didn't have that power, or was at least forced to recognize it didn't have that power. And that's a good thing. The idea of a football coach getting victories reinstated and his legacy being preserved in some way is ridiculous.
Mike Sielski here from the Inquirer, and of course you can check out more on this, of course, I'm sure, coming up as this kind of just broke about an hour ago. Sports columnist Mike Sielski, who wrote two really good columns on this back in 2014. You can check them out at Mike Sielski's Twitter page. Just follow him at Mike Sielski. He's got the links up there. You know, a lot of people talking about putting a statue back up of Joe Paterno. Mike, do you think that is something that should be done, or would you rather say, look, you got the victories back up, that is a nice gesture to bring that back, but don't go and put a statue back up on the campus?
Well, my colleague Bob Brookover had a column earlier this week in which he said you should put the statue back up, but you also have to put up some kind of memorial or acknowledgement of Sandusky's prime. And I have no problem with that. We should not go back to treating Joe Paterno and his time at Penn State as if he were some kind of god. He was not a god. He was a football coach. He did some very good things for the university, poured a lot of money into the library, talked the talk when it came to, balancing education and athletics, but he didn't always walk the walk. And he also had kind of a tunnel vision with respect to football and maybe a naivete with respect to what Jerry Sandusky might be doing that really prevented, I think, in some ways, these crimes being discovered earlier. It's wrong, in my view, to paint him as this kind of Renaissance man who just happened to be the greatest football coach in NCAA history. He was a football coach. Remember him that way and acknowledge the totality of what happened while he was in charge of that program.
Mike Sielski is with us from the Philadelphia Inquirer, and, this is a really interesting story that has all of a sudden come out here about 1 o'clock this afternoon. The NCAA is going to restore Joe Paterno's vacated Penn State wins. And as you kind of mentioned, they've already gone through two coaching changes in the time that this has all happened. Obviously, Bill O'Brien went to the NFL. James Franklin's in there right now. And do you think, you kind of mentioned that might not be able to get out of the Jerry Sandusky scandal, but do you think that the football program and that the university in general has done a good job amidst all this stuff that has happened around them? Have they done a good job persevering and moving on? Maybe not separating themselves from that, but doing a good job with all the sanctions that were placed on them.
Well, I can tell you my 6-month-old son, who I'm holding, approves of what Penn State has done. Yeah, they've gone by the letter. Even the NCAA has acknowledged that they've done what they had to do, and they've taken their medicine as much as they could take of it, and they've moved forward. The question becomes for me, though, going forward, whether the people around the program, the people who go to Beaver Stadium every Saturday in the fall and the winter, the administration that's left, the people who are going to pick up the ball and carry it from this point forward, learn any lessons from this about what kind of a single-minded culture with respect to sports at an institution of learning can bring about. Because the reaction to this, and some may argue, even the people who put the Free Report together would argue this, that the culture and the environment that was created when football was placed on such a pedestal allowed, or at least contributed to allowing things like this happen. And the reaction to that in a lot of quarters kind of bears that out, I think.